Sweet but psycho, that's what millions of people called her. A beautiful girl with dark eyes and a haunting smile, making faces at a courtroom camera, smirking, pointing at her eyes, performing for an audience that wouldn't exist for another 7 years. In 2020, Isabella Guzman became TikTok's most controversial obsession. Her courtroom footage went viral, soundtracked by a pop song that seemed written for her. Fans created tribute pages. Comment sections overflowed with sympathy, attraction, even admiration. She's so beautiful. She must have had a reason. Poor girl, she was just sick. But there was nothing sweet about what Isabella Guzman did on August 28, 2013, in a locked bathroom in suburban Aurora, Colorado, while her stepfather listened helplessly from the other side of the door. 18-year-old Isabella Guzman stabbed her mother 79 times, 31 wounds to the face, 48 to the neck. Blood pooled beneath the door. The shower ran, continuously, washing away evidence that would never fully disappear. But the initial count was wrong. When medical examiners conducted a thorough autopsy, they discovered the truth was far worse. 151 separate stab wounds. This wasn't just murder. This was annihilation. 7 years later, teenage girls on TikTok would call her an icon. This is the story of how a brutal killer became an internet celebrity, how a daughter's rage destroyed a mother's life, and how the question of sanity versus manipulation created one of the most controversial insanity defenses in modern American history. Was Isabella Guzman a severely mentally ill teenager, suffering from paranoid schizophrenia, who genuinely couldn't distinguish reality from delusion? Or was she a cold, calculating killer who learned exactly what to say to escape justice? The truth might be more disturbing than either answer. This is Sweet but Psycho, the TikTok famous killer who stabbed her mom 79 times. Isabella Yunmi Guzman was born on June 9, 1995 in Aurora, Colorado. Her parents were Robert Guzman and Yunmi Hoy, a couple whose marriage would not survive Isabella's early childhood. When Isabella was just 3 years old, her parents divorced. Her mother, Yunmi, remarried a man named Ryan Hoy. Her father, Robert, eventually remarried as well. Blended families face challenges, but the Guzman family faced something far darker. From a very young age, Isabella exhibited behavioral problems that alarmed her mother. She was difficult to manage, prone to outbursts, defiant in ways that went beyond normal childhood rebellion. Family members would later describe her as sweet and good-hearted, but even they acknowledged something was different about Isabella. By the time Isabella turned 7 years old, Yunmi Hoy had reached her breaking point. She couldn't handle her daughter's behavior any longer. In a decision that must have torn her apart, Yunmi sent Isabella to live with her biological father, Robert Guzman. The separation provided temporary relief. Robert managed Isabella's behavior, and the constant fighting ceased. But it was only a pause, not a solution. When Isabella was around 14 years old, she returned to live with her mother and stepfather, Ryan Hoy, at their home on South Lima Street in Aurora. The friction that had existed before immediately returned, but now it was worse. Much worse. Ryan Hoy would later describe his stepdaughter as hot-tempered, someone who ran her mouth constantly, cursing at her parents without remorse.
What's your impression of her?
She is very hot-tempered.
Hot-tempered, okay.
Very hot-tempered person. It doesn't, and she runs her mouth like crazy. F you, F this, F that.
The verbal altercations between Isabella and her mother became a regular feature of life in the Hoy household. Yunmi would argue back, which only seemed to enrage Isabella further. By the time Isabella reached 18, she had dropped out of high school. She had no job, no clear direction, and an increasingly volatile relationship with everyone around her. The arguments escalated. The disrespect intensified. But there was another layer to the family conflict, one that Isabella would later claim was at the heart of everything: religion. Yunmi and Robert Guzman were Jehovah's Witnesses. They had raised Isabella within the faith, attending Kingdom Hall meetings, studying scripture, following the religion's strict guidelines. But at age 14, Isabella made a decision that would fracture her relationship with her family even further. She left the religion. According to Isabella's later statements, the abuse in her home worsened dramatically after she abandoned the faith. She would claim years of physical and emotional abuse, describing fights that left scars on her hands, a household atmosphere of control and punishment. Her family would never corroborate these abuse allegations, and by the time Isabella made them public, her mother was dead. Unable to defend herself, unable to share her side of the story. What is certain is this. By August 2013, the Guzman Hoy household was a powder keg, and Isabella was holding a match. Before we go any further, we need to talk about the woman who was lost in all of this, Eunmi Hoy. Eunmi was 47 years old in 2013. She owned and operated a portrait studio, working hard to provide for her family. Those who knew her described a woman who was dedicated, loving, and patient. Perhaps too patient with a daughter who showed her nothing but contempt. Eunmi had tried everything. She'd sent Isabella to live with Robert when the behavioral issues became unmanageable. She'd welcomed her back when Isabella wanted to return home. She'd set boundaries, enforced rules, and absorbed verbal abuse that would have broken most parents. As a devout Jehovah's Witness, Eunmi believed in redemption, in forgiveness, in the power of family to overcome adversity. She never gave up hope that Isabella would change, that the sweet little girl she'd once known was still somewhere inside the angry young woman who screamed at her daily. Eunmi's husband, Ryan Hoy, watched his wife struggle. He saw the toll Isabella's behavior took on her. He witnessed the escalating tensions, but even he never imagined how far Isabella's rage would go. Isabella's biological father, Robert Guzman, would later tell reporters about his ex-wife's dedication. She tried really, really hard for her family, but Isabella didn't appreciate anything she did for her. Eunmi Hoy deserved to grow old. She deserved to see her portrait studio flourish. She deserved peace. Instead, she died terrified and alone, in her own bathroom, at the hands of the daughter she'd never stopped loving. August 27, 2013, the day before the murder, Isabella Guzman and her mother had their worst fight yet. The details of what sparked it have never been fully disclosed, but what happened next was witnessed and documented. Isabella spat in her mother's face. It was a gesture of pure contempt, a final crossing of a line that could never be uncrossed. Eunmi was shaken, frightened by the intensity of her daughter's hatred. The next morning, August 28th, Eunmi Hoy opened her email to find a message from Isabella. It contained just 3 words: "You will pay." Terrified, Eunmi called the Aurora Police Department.
No, she's not suicidal, but she was planning. She can be suicidal, or she can hurt me or somebody else in the house.
So did she threaten to hurt you, or you're worried she might hurt you?
She's planning to hurt me last night.
Okay.
This wasn't teenage drama anymore. This was a direct threat. She feared for her safety in her own home. 4 police officers responded to the residence at 2624 South Lima Street that afternoon. They spoke with both Eunmi and Isabella, listening to both sides of the ongoing family conflict. The officers told Isabella in no uncertain terms that her mother had the legal right to evict her from the home if her disrespectful behavior continued. Isabella was 18 years old, an adult under Colorado law. After speaking with both parties, the officers determined that the situation appeared to be resolved. There was no immediate danger. They left. But Eunmi was still worried. She called her ex-husband, Robert Guzman, Isabella's biological father, and asked him to come speak with their daughter. Robert arrived at the house and found Isabella in the backyard. He would later describe the conversation to reporters. "I went to talk to her because her mother was worried and wanted me to talk to Isabella. So, I went to talk to Isabella and we sat down in the backyard looking at the trees and the animals, and I started to talk to her about the respect that people should have for their parents. And I was trying to let her know that she should be obedient to her parents, not rebellious, that she should try to listen more, and everything was going fine." Robert left the house believing he'd made progress. The conversation had been calm, rational. Isabella had listened. He told Yunmi that he thought things would improve. But obviously it didn't do nothing, Robert would later say, because hours later, this thing happened. What Robert Guzman didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Isabella had already made her decision. The email hadn't been an idle threat. It had been a promise. August 28th, 2013. 9:30 p.m. Yunmi Hoi arrived home from work, exhausted from a long day at her portrait studio. She told her husband, Ryan, that she was going upstairs to take a shower. It was a routine she'd followed countless times. Turn on the water, step under the hot stream, wash away the stress of the day. Ryan was downstairs. Isabella was somewhere in the house. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed safe. The shower started running on the second floor. Ryan could hear the water through the ceiling, the familiar sound of his wife beginning her evening routine. And then the thumping started. Loud, violent, rhythmic. The sound shook the entire house. Ryan froze, trying to process what he was hearing. Were Isabella and Yunmi fighting again? Was something falling? Then came his wife's voice, screaming his name. Ryan Hoi raced up the stairs, his heart pounding. The thumping sounds continued, violent and unrelenting. His wife's screams echoed through the hallway. When he reached the second floor, he saw the bathroom door. It was slightly ajar, but when he tried to push it open, it wouldn't budge. Someone was on the other side, leaning against it, blocking his entry. "Yunmi!" he shouted. The shower was still running. The thumping continued. And then Ryan looked down and saw something that made his blood run cold. Blood. Dark red blood, seeping out from beneath the bathroom door, pooling on the hallway floor. Ryan threw his weight against the door, trying to force it open, but whoever was on the other side was pushing back with equal force. He couldn't get in. He couldn't reach his wife. Panicked, Ryan ran back downstairs to grab his cell phone. His hands shook as he dialed 911. It was 10:05 p.m. when the Aurora Police Department Dispatch Center received the call. It was the second call they'd received from 2624 South Lima Street that day. But this time, there would be no peaceful resolution. Ryan told the dispatcher that his wife and stepdaughter were locked in the upstairs bathroom. He could hear sounds of a struggle. He could see blood, so much blood, coming from underneath the door. He was still trying to process what was happening, still hoping this was somehow a terrible accident. While Ryan was on the phone with dispatch downstairs, clutching his cell phone, he heard something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. His wife's voice, weak and fading, speaking one final word. Jehovah. It was a prayer. It was goodbye. Ryan was still on the phone with the 911 dispatcher when he heard the bathroom door open. He looked up the stairs and saw Isabella standing in the doorway. She was wearing only a pink sports bra and turquoise shorts. Both were soaked in blood. Her hands were covered in blood. Her face was splattered with blood. In her right hand, she held a kitchen knife. Isabella stood there for a moment, silhouetted in the bathroom doorway, backlit by the harsh fluorescent light. The shower was still running behind her, and on the floor, barely visible from Ryan's vantage point, was the body of his wife. Isabella looked at Ryan. She didn't speak. She didn't scream. She didn't cry or apologize or show any emotion whatsoever. According to the police affidavit, Isabella was just staring straight ahead when she walked past him. She walked down the stairs past her stepfather, past the blood she was tracking across the floor, past the cell phone in Ryan's hand that was still connected to emergency dispatch. She walked to the front door, opened it, and disappeared into the night. Ryan ran into the bathroom. What he found there defied comprehension. His wife, Yunmi Hoi, lay naked on the bathroom floor. Blood covered every surface: the walls, the floor, the shower curtain, the sink. A baseball bat lay near her body. She had tried to defend herself. Ryan dropped to his knees and attempted CPR, desperately trying to revive her, but he already knew it was too late. Her throat had been slashed. Her face and neck were covered in stab wounds. Deep, brutal, overlapping wounds that rendered her features almost unrecognizable. The coroner would later count the injuries: 31 stab wounds to the face, 48 to the neck, additional wounds to the torso, 79 stab wounds in total, or so they initially thought. Later, a more thorough examination would reveal the full horror: 151 separate knife wounds. The attack had been sustained, prolonged, and unimaginably violent. This wasn't a crime of passion that ended in seconds. This had taken time. This had taken commitment. This had taken choice. By the time paramedics arrived at 10:16 p.m., there was nothing they could do. Yoon-mi Hoi was pronounced dead at the scene at 10:28 p.m., and Isabella Guzman had vanished into the Colorado night, wearing blood-soaked workout clothes and carrying the murder weapon. The Aurora Police Department immediately launched a massive manhunt. Officers flooded the neighborhood surrounding South Lima Street, searching yards, checking parked cars, canvassing every possible hiding spot. Isabella Guzman was now officially designated as armed and dangerous. A public alert went out across Colorado. Do not approach. Call 911 immediately if spotted. Police attempted to ping Isabella's cell phone to track her location, but the phone had been turned off. She had disappeared completely. Search dogs were deployed. Helicopters circled overhead with spotlights. Roadblocks were established at major intersections. Every officer in Aurora was looking for an 18-year-old girl in a pink sports bra and turquoise shorts, covered in her mother's blood. But Isabella was gone. For 16 hours, she evaded capture. Where she went, what she did during those hours, remains unclear. Did she try to flee Colorado? Did she hide in the shadows watching police search for her? Did she even understand what she had done? The manhunt continued through the night and into the next morning. August 29th, 2013. 11:30 a.m. The Aurora Police Department received a call from a concerned citizen reporting a suspicious person sitting inside a vehicle at a parking garage located at 2851 South Parker Road, approximately 8 miles from the murder scene. Officers responded to the location and approached the vehicle, a Jeep that belonged to a local company. Inside, sitting motionless in the driver's seat, was Isabella Guzman. She was still wearing the pink sports bra and turquoise shorts. Both were stiff and dark with dried blood. Her hands were covered in dried blood. Her arms showed injuries, cuts and gashes that would require medical attention. When officers ordered her to exit the vehicle, Isabella complied without resistance. She didn't try to run. She didn't fight. She simply stepped out of the Jeep and allowed herself to be handcuffed. It had been more than 12 hours since she'd murdered her mother, and Isabella had made no attempt to clean the blood from her body or change her clothes. She had simply waited. Isabella was transported to Aurora Police Headquarters for questioning. Her hand and arm injuries required stitches, so she was briefly taken to a hospital for medical treatment before being brought to the interrogation room. What happened next would raise questions that persist to this day. Inside the Aurora Police Headquarters interrogation room, detectives encountered something unprecedented. Isabella Guzman sat across from them with bandaged hands, and she refused to acknowledge who she was. Her name was Samantha Gonzalez, she insisted. She was 15 years old. She needed to go to the French Quarter in Aurora, where her boyfriend Gabriel was waiting. When detectives showed her identification cards and photographs proving she was Isabella Guzman, she examined them and shook her head. Many people look alike. They were confusing her with someone else. Isabella demanded fingerprinting to prove they had the wrong person.
I'm not this girl. I don't know what happened with her and her life and who she is or what school she went to. That's not my problem. My problem right now is finding my boyfriend.
It's a funny game you're playing, but nobody's laughing. You think some juror sitting on a jury is going to believe that?
She pointed out physical differences. Isabella supposedly weighed 110 pounds while she weighed 148 pounds. They couldn't be the same person. The detectives were making a terrible mistake that would ruin her life. For hours, the interrogation continued. Isabella never wavered. Every question about the murder was met with confusion and denial. She knew nothing about a woman named Yoon-mi Hoi. She had never lived on South Lima Street. This was all a case of mistaken identity based on physical resemblance. The detectives brought in Robert Guzman, Isabella's biological father, hoping he could break through the delusion. Robert entered the room and approached his daughter slowly, reaching out to cradle her face with gentle hands.
Who's that?
That's my baby.
Okay.
Sir, do you recognize this?
Why don't you come on back out here for a second? Do you recognize her?
Yeah, she's my daughter.
What's her name?
Isabella
Isabella. What's her last name?
Guzman.
Isabella Guzman. Okay.
Isabella violently pushed him away and backed into the corner. She didn't know this man. She'd never seen him before. The detectives asked Robert to identify her. Through tears, he confirmed she was his daughter, Isabella Guzman. But Isabella only grew more agitated. This stranger was lying. She was Samantha Gonzalez, not Isabella. She demanded to be released immediately so she could go see her boyfriend. As detectives revealed details about the crime, a mother stabbed to death, blood evidence, a murder weapon, Isabella expressed disgust. This Isabella person must be seriously messed up to do something so horrible, but she had nothing to do with any of it. From the moment she sat down until officers removed her for medical treatment hours later, Isabella Guzman maintained the alternate identity with absolute conviction. She never broke character once. Was this a genuine psychotic break? A complete dissociation from reality caused by severe mental illness? Or was this a carefully rehearsed performance by someone who understood exactly what an insanity defense required? The answer would determine everything. In the months following her arrest, Isabella Guzman underwent extensive psychiatric evaluation. Multiple mental health professionals assessed her condition, reviewed her history, and attempted to understand what had driven her to such extreme violence. Dr. Richard Pounds, a forensic psychiatrist, was assigned to evaluate Isabella. His findings would prove crucial to the outcome of the case. Dr. Pounds diagnosed Isabella with paranoid schizophrenia, a severe mental illness characterized by delusions, hallucinations, and a fundamental break from reality. According to his evaluation, Isabella had been suffering from this condition for years, but it had gone undiagnosed and untreated. The symptoms Dr. Pounds observed were unmistakable. Isabella exhibited clear signs of hallucination, staring into empty space, having conversations with people who weren't present, laughing at things only she could see or hear. Her thought patterns were disorganized and paranoid. Most significantly, Dr. Pounds concluded that Isabella had been in the grip of a severe psychotic episode on the night of August 28, 2013. She had not been stabbing her mother. In her delusional state, she believed she was stabbing a woman named Cecilia, who needed to die in order to save the world. According to Dr. Pounds' testimony, Isabella genuinely did not recognize that the person in the bathroom was her mother. The hallucinations and delusions had so thoroughly distorted her perception of reality that she was incapable of understanding the nature of her actions. Isabella's attorneys built their defense around this diagnosis. They argued that Isabella met the legal definition of insanity. She had a mental disease that prevented her from knowing right from wrong, and she could not have acted differently given her condition. The defense presented evidence of Isabella's long history of behavioral problems that, in retrospect, appeared to be early symptoms of untreated schizophrenia rather than simple teenage rebellion. They argued that Isabella's family had missed the warning signs, mistaking mental illness for defiance. What happened next shocked everyone following the case. George Brauchler, the district attorney for Colorado's 18th Judicial District, stood before the court and made an announcement that prosecutors almost never make. He agreed with the defense. Brauchler had reviewed all the evidence. He'd consulted with mental health experts. He'd examined Isabella's psychiatric evaluations. And he'd reached a conclusion that went against every prosecutorial instinct. Isabella Guzman was genuinely insane at the time she killed her mother. This is what Brauchler said in court. "We punish people who make decisions to do wrong when they knew better and they could have done something differently. And in this particular case, I am convinced, based on the evidence that I've seen and the information that's been presented in court, that this woman did not know right from wrong. and she could not have acted differently than she did, given the significant schizophrenia and paranoid delusions, audible, visual hallucinations that she was going through. I was convinced of it, and I felt like in the interest of justice, I had to take these steps. It's extraordinarily rare for a prosecutor, especially in a case involving such horrific violence, to accept an insanity defense. Brauchler's decision was based on his belief that the evidence of Isabella's mental illness was simply too overwhelming to ignore. The message was clear. This wasn't a case about punishment. This was a case about severe, untreated mental illness that had resulted in unimaginable tragedy. In June 2014, the court accepted Isabella Guzman's plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. She would not go to prison. She would not face a traditional criminal sentence. Instead, she was committed to the Colorado Mental Health Institute in Pueblo, a secure psychiatric facility, where she would receive treatment for her schizophrenia. The judge's order was clear. Isabella would remain at the facility until mental health professionals determined she was no longer a danger to herself or others. That could be a matter of months, years, or decades. It could be the rest of her life. There was no release date, no parole hearing, no predetermined end to her confinement. Her freedom would depend entirely on whether treatment could successfully manage her mental illness. For the Hoy family, for Robert Guzman, for everyone who had loved Yunmi, the verdict was difficult to accept. Yes, Isabella was mentally ill, but their wife, their ex-wife, their family member was still dead, brutally murdered in her own bathroom. Where was the justice in that? The insanity verdict doesn't mean Isabella got away with murder. It means the legal system determined she wasn't criminally responsible for her actions because she lacked the mental capacity to understand what she was doing. But for many people, that distinction offered little comfort. Isabella Guzman disappeared into the Colorado mental health system, and for 7 years, the world mostly forgot about her, until TikTok remembered. 7 years after Yunmi Hoy's murder, the world was in the grip of a pandemic. Millions of people were isolated at home, and TikTok had become the dominant social media platform for entertainment and distraction. Someone, we'll never know exactly who, discovered old courtroom footage of Isabella Guzman's 2013 arraignment hearing. The video showed a young woman in an orange jumpsuit, smirking at the camera, making strange faces, pointing at her eyes. That user posted the video to TikTok, and something bizarre happened. It went viral. Within days, the video had hundreds of thousands of views, then millions. Other TikTok users began posting their own versions of the footage, many of them set to music, specifically Ava Max's song Sweet But Psycho. The lyrics seemed eerily perfect. Sweet but psycho, a little bit psycho, at night she's screaming, I'm mama out my mind. More videos followed. Users created compilations of Isabella's courtroom behavior. They made tribute edits. They attempted to recreate her facial expressions and poses. Fan pages sprouted up on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. The comment sections revealed something deeply disturbing about our culture's relationship with true crime and celebrity. She's so beautiful. She must have had a good reason for what she did. I would let her stab me. Poor Isabella, she was just mentally ill, she couldn't help it. Free Isabella. One compilation video of her court footage accumulated nearly 2 million views. Thousands of people left comments defending her, expressing sympathy for her, even claiming attraction to her. Isabella Guzman had become TikTok's most controversial obsession. She wasn't a killer, she was an icon. Not everyone was celebrating Isabella's viral fame. Mental health advocates were horrified by the videos, arguing that they glorified violence and perpetuated dangerous stereotypes about mental illness. The vast majority of people with schizophrenia are not violent. They're far more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. But videos like these reinforce the harmful myth that mental illness equals danger. Critics on Twitter and other platforms pushed back against the romanticization. Stop making jokes about Isabella. She has a mental disorder, and you're making fun of someone who can't think straight. You're sick if you laughed at this. She is an example of why mental illness should be taken seriously and not treated as a joke. Others pointed out the role that physical attractiveness played in Isabella's reception. Would she have gained a fan base if she weren't conventionally attractive? The uncomfortable truth seemed to be no. Research has shown that attractive criminals receive more lenient treatment from juries, lighter sentences from judges, and more sympathetic coverage in media. Isabella's case was a perfect example of this pretty privilege in action. If Isabella had been plain-looking, overweight, or unattractive by conventional standards, would millions of teenagers be making fan pages for her? Would they be defending her actions? Would they be calling her an icon? The answer reveals something troubling about how we process violence, mental illness, and celebrity in the age of social media. In November 2020, while her courtroom footage was going viral on TikTok, Isabella Guzman gave an interview to CBS 4's Rick Salinger. It was her first public statement since the murder 7 years earlier. Isabella appeared via video call from the Colorado Mental Health Institute in Pueblo. She looked older now, more composed, nothing like the smirking teenager in the orange jumpsuit. Isabella told Salinger that she had been successfully treated for her schizophrenia. She was taking medication. She was participating in therapy. And she believed she was ready to be released back into society. "I'm not mentally ill anymore," Isabella said. "I don't pose a danger to myself or others. I was not myself when I did that, and I have since been restored to full health."
"I'm not mentally ill anymore. I'm not a danger to myself or others. If I could change it or if I could take it back, I would."
She expressed remorse for what she had done. "If I could change it or if I could take it back, I would." But Isabella also made claims that complicated the narrative of her case. She alleged that she had suffered years of abuse at the hands of her family. "I was abused at home by my family for many years," Isabella said. "My parents are Jehovah's Witnesses, and I left the religion when I was 14, and the abuse at home worsened after I quit." She claimed that the fight with her mother on the day before the murder had been violent, that she herself had been injured. "The fight with my mom was terrible, and I was injured in the process. I have the scars on my hand." These abuse allegations had never been mentioned during the original investigation or trial. They surfaced only now, 7 years later, as Isabella petitioned for her release. There was no way to verify her claims, and the one person who could have confirmed or denied them, Yunmi Hoi, was dead. Isabella made another shocking allegation in the interview. She claimed that in 2015, while institutionalized at the Colorado Mental Health Institute, she had been sexually assaulted by a hospital employee. According to Isabella, the employee had lured her into a closet under the pretense of getting clothing, then assaulted her while they were alone. She said there were 2 additional incidents with the same employee. "I was afraid that if I didn't do what he wanted, he could ruin my life," Isabella said. Isabella had filed a police report with the hospital police, but according to the Pueblo County District Attorney's Office, they never received the case from hospital authorities. The Colorado Department of Human Services, which oversees the mental health facility, declined to provide any information about the allegations, citing patient privacy laws. No charges were ever filed. No employee was ever prosecuted, and Isabella's allegations remain unresolved. In June 2021, a judge ruled that Isabella could leave the hospital campus for group therapy and other therapeutic activities. However, she would be required to wear a GPS tracking device at all times. As of 2024, Isabella Guzman remains under the supervision of the Colorado Mental Health Institute. She has not been released. She continues to petition for her freedom, arguing that she has been successfully treated and poses no danger to society. But the question remains, should someone who committed such an unimaginably brutal act of violence ever be released? Even if they were mentally ill at the time? Even if they've received years of treatment? There's no easy answer. Sweet but psycho. That's what the song says. That's what millions of people called Isabella Guzman when her courtroom footage went viral. But there was nothing sweet about what happened in that bathroom on August 28, 2013. A mother died in terror. A daughter destroyed not just her mother's life, but her own. A family was shattered beyond repair. And the question of sanity versus responsibility created a legal and moral gray area that we still haven't fully navigated. If Isabella was truly suffering from paranoid schizophrenia, If she genuinely believed she was killing someone named Cecilia to save the world, if her brain was so damaged by untreated mental illness that she couldn't understand reality, then what she needs is treatment, not punishment. But if any part of her knew what she was doing, if any fragment of consciousness understood that she was stabbing her own mother 151 times, if there was even a moment of clarity in which she could have stopped but chose not to, then how do we reconcile that with justice? These questions don't have simple answers. Mental illness is complex. Human behavior is complex. The intersection of criminal justice and mental health treatment remains one of the most difficult challenges our society faces. What is clear is this: the Isabella Guzman case is a tragedy on every level. A mother lost, a daughter lost, a family destroyed, and a cautionary tale about what happens when mental illness goes unrecognized, untreated, and unaddressed until it's too late. Yun Mi Hoi deserved better. She deserved to live. She deserved to see her daughter get help. She deserved to grow old. Instead, she became a victim, a statistic, a name in a case file, and eventually, a forgotten detail in a viral video that millions watched for entertainment. If there's one thing we should take from this case, it's this: behind every viral video, behind every true crime story, behind every courtroom clip that gets millions of views, there are real people, real lives destroyed, real families grieving. Isabella Guzman may be famous on TikTok, but Yun Mi Hoi is the one we should remember. Isabella Guzman, now 29, remains at the Colorado Mental Health Institute in Pueblo. She has never been criminally convicted of murder. She continues to petition for release. Yun Mi Hoi was 47 years old when she was murdered by her daughter. No one has been charged in connection with Isabella's allegations of sexual assault at the mental hospital. Videos of Isabella's court appearance have been viewed over 100 million times across social media platforms. In memory of Yun Mi Hoi, 1966-2013,